Welcome back to the Hat House, guys. Really appreciate you tuning back in. In today's video, we've got some great sales, and also we're going to answer a lot of your questions. So keep them coming in. Like this video, drop your questions, and we're going to answer them for you. Today, we're going to answer a great question, but it's hard to answer. It's how do you tell if a hat is vintage? Now, when I'm selling vintage hats in my videos, I'm going to start doing a better job of explaining what makes it vintage and how it's vintage, and what you can really be on the lookout for when you're picking up hats. The second question is, who is your favorite YouTuber? I'm going to answer that, my favorite reselling YouTuber in this video. And the last question is, how do you store all your hats? Now, I did a video about this, about our listing and storage process several times, but I'm still going to answer that question in this video as well. It keeps coming up, and it's really important that we have a good inventory system if we're going to be listing this many hats. So let's get to the garage and see what's sold. All right, guys, let's see what's going out in this batch. This is a really cool batch. I'm not an overhyper, but I really like this batch of hats that's going out. We got some combined orders. We got some really special hats that are going out here. Really cool to see. First up was this combined order of 7 hats. It was going to China, but it's getting shipped to like Washington. They use a shipper to take them into Washington, and then they ship them overseas, which don't ever be worried about that. 99% of the time, those transactions are fine. Freight forwarders are fine. And really, your obligation is met once it arrives at that freight forwarder anyways. eBay will typically have your back. But this is a really good sale. This is about $70 for all these hats. Some of them I've had for a while. There was 2 polo hats. There was this Polo Dad hat, this Polo Dad hat. There was another Polo Dad hat. So 3 Polo Dad hats. And then they bought a vintage LL Bean hunting hat. This was a Friends Central Perk hat. And then this hat was just, it said Storyville on it. They just kind of added that in with the bunch because it was marked down. Next up was another combined order. These were some vintage trucker hats. They were all denim. These went out for around $30 to $35. They've got a pretty good deal on these. This was a Seattle tarp company with the denim with a patch on it. Macmillan Construction with the patch on it. And Consolidated Freightways with the patch on it. This one was K brand, K products. This was in really good condition. The other 2 were not K brand or K products, but they got a really good deal. $30 for 3 hats. Next up was this Carolina Panthers. It was really awesome. Shark tooth Carolina Panthers. It was a new era, so it wasn't the shark tooth that we're looking for. That might be hundreds of dollars if you found it. But this one was really cool. Remake, retro, Carolina Panthers. Shark tooth went out for $28. Super sweet hat. Next up was this vintage Orlando Magic. It had the rope, kind of a trucker, a little bit older hat. Again, how do we tell if it's older hat? It had this tag in here. The tag wasn't really sewn in. This snap right here that says "We Cover the World" on it typically is a vintage snap as well. It's made by Universal Industries, which is a vintage hat brand. And I'm going to keep giving the knowledge on how to tell if something's vintage. Those are the 3 main factors that I used to tell that this one was vintage. Next up was just a basic Under Armour that went out for $6. Under Armour flex fitted hat. It was super clean. They got a great deal on this one. Next up was a basic Patagonia. I think this one went out for $10. Just had the basic patch on it. Just your everyday Patagonia snapback. Next up was another combined order. It's like the combined order flip was switched in the store the last week. We had a Nautica hat, just a regular Nautica strapback hat in blue. And then we had another strapback hat, just said California written on it in script. These went out for like $16. Next up, we had a Nike hat. It went out for $10. Sometimes I'm stubborn. I get it. Buyer sent me $8. I knew it was a $10 hat. I knew that probably not everyone had one out there like that. And sometimes you just get a feeling somebody really likes something. Pay me a couple more dollars for it because my margins aren't that awesome all the time anyways. And I was a little stubborn. I waited for the 10 and it took a couple of days, they came around to my way. Next up was a polo dad hat. This one had the blue with the orange pony. I always put the color of the hat and the color of the pony in the listing. Some people are looking for a specific color pony. Some people are looking for a specific color hat. And this one was the leather strap back version. It went for $19. Help your buyers find these things. It was an older one. This is an older polo tag. It was made in China, so it's not really old or the real desirable if it was made in USA, but still older, nice polo hat. Went out for $19. Next up was a New Jersey Devils strapback hat. It still had the tags on it, probably was brand new. I still list everything as pre-owned in my store because I don't know, maybe somebody tried it on, maybe they wore it and you can't tell, because I'm not a distributor of hats. I don't have a license to with New Era or anyone to sell things new, so I just put them as used, and that's why I do it. This one went for $12 because it did still have kind of a defect too. There was some stitching problems right here, but really cool hat. They got a great deal. Next up was this cool Adidas USA hat. I think it went out for around $10 or $12 as well, but it was a really cool hat. Flex fit, Adidas, super clean too. Next up was this nice LL Bean, kind of a trapper hat. Had the ear flaps, another Weather Channel hat. So make sure you get these Weather Channel hats if you need to go out and do an on-the-spot location report in your local neighborhood. You really need a Weather Channel hat to be able to do that properly. This one went out for $14. Next up was Seattle Seahawks, this vintage hat. Mary, do you know how much this one went for? It was a snapback. It was a trucker. This was in beautiful condition.
$20.
Yeah, good price for this. It was the Old Sports Specialties with the mesh trucker. Nice hat. Next hat went out to a viewer, and they made the comment in the message they sent me, and I did as well. This was a really nice hat. Beautiful condition. Surprised it went for only $12. I will tell you the reason maybe is it is a really big hat. 7 7/8 is really hit and miss. I know that people that are size 7 7/8 or size 8, they always complain that they can't find their size, but the reason is because it doesn't sell very well. So they usually sit for a while. You can usually pick them up for a good deal, but they are hard to find. But sometimes they just sit for so long. They do get marked down. Same with this one. Beautiful desert camo San Francisco Giants hat. But got a great deal just because I had it for so long. And people don't look for 7 7/8 too often. Also got a sticker going with it. Always appreciate you guys coming over from the YouTube side and buying a hat from us. Next up was a Daytona Beach Bike Week. This one went out for like $10. Bike Week 2010. Just a regular strapback hat. Next, I told you so. This was in an unboxing video or something. I just remember talking about how this logo is probably hard to find. That a lot of people price these around $10. But when they're hard to find, Buffalo Bills with the buffalo on it in the franchise fitted. This was, what size was this? A size large, 47 brand, franchise fitted. Price them up, at least start them around $25 to $30. If you have one that's a little more rare, that's not just the basic colors, and somebody really wants this hat, wants this logo, they will pay $30 to get it to them because it's their size, it's their color, it's their logo, and they've been looking for this hat forever to come back on the market, and you have it and they'll buy it. Next up was this really cool vintage Sports Specialties NBC Sports hat. Really nice hat. This is the second time I've sold it. This one went around $38. It was really clean inside. It got returned. They said that it didn't like how it fit, whatever. I think they were a reseller that bought it from me for around $30. They held on to it for a while and then they returned it. And then I sold it again for $30 because it's a $30 hat. These hats go for $30. That's the price. If you're going to buy it thinking you're going to sell it for $50 or $60 because it's Sports Specialties, it's not going to happen. It's a $30 hat. I appreciate the purchase. They got a beautiful hat that's $30. Next up was Oakley hat we listed yesterday in our 100 hats that we listed in one day. Video coming probably already out, but man, it took me forever. Those types of videos and the editing, it really takes some dedication from those YouTubers. And I don't know if I consider myself a YouTuber yet, but this hat went out almost immediately after we listed it. I listed it for 18 bucks. Flex fit Oakley hat going out. Next up was also a hat that we listed in the 100 hats. This one is one I did do a little more research on. There was another fella out there that had one for around 50 bucks. Looked like he had it for a minute. Mine sold for $48. I came in a few dollars underneath him. It sold in a couple of hours. Nice polo script hat. This one had the leather strap back as well with the vintage polo tag on the inside. This one, let's see, it was made in Taiwan. Usually Taiwan was before China. Typically it was made in Taiwan, then it was made in China. You can still have vintage polo in China, but if you have Taiwan, it's probably a little bit older. Really neat hat. Anyways, the pricing, he was at 50, I went 48. Mine sold. It looks like he's had his forever. I don't remember if he had best offer on, but I was really happy for that sell. Okay, we went a little out of order. I'm already done with shipping, but I did want to get to some of your questions today that I'll put in the middle of this video. And like I've said, I answer every single question that you put down in the comments. So make sure you comment down below if you have any questions about anything on the channel. Happy to answer those. But we're going to get to some of the questions in every video, and Mary's got one for us right now.
I have one for D Bush 3100. They ask, what's the best way to store your hats after listing?
The best way to store the hats. I forgot to bring it. Mary, will you hand me the right here? And I also have a video about my storage, storing 6,000 hats that might help you out a little bit. But I label each box like with H271. This one has it on there. And then there's about 25 hats that will fit in this box. This box is a 30 by 10 by 10 box, and I've cut the box in half and actually made 2 boxes out of every one of the boxes. So this is really the best storage solution that we have. I'm still going to get to a listing video to show you how we list them exactly and then get them in here. But these hold 25 hats, and then we just kind of go through and condense the hats every now and then out in the shed. And then we have empty boxes that we're ready to list in. All right, guys, first up was this New York Yankees. It was just a strap back. It went out for $10, regular New York Yankees hat. Next up was this San Diego Chargers vintage hat. It went out for like $8. It had this huge stain on the top of it. Would have been like a $20 hat, but the stain, I'm sure that's why it took forever. Next up, somebody got a great deal on this Penn State Nittany Lions. It was vintage, new era. It was super clean, only went for $10. It was a repeat customer, so I took their offer. They got a great deal. Next up was another really good deal. This was a vintage Daytona 500, 1996. It was on the kudzu tag, which is a vintage youngin tag. Had the youngin snaps, only went for $10. They got a great deal on this hat too. I had it for a while. I just think there was quite a few of the 1996 ones out on the market, which really kind of pushed down the price. But some other of the Daytona hats can go for $20 to $30. This one just took forever. Next up was this vintage Ramtastic. This is another cool vintage hat, but there's just quite a few of these out there too. This one only went for $10 as well. It was in really great shape. Customers getting a great deal, which is always good for them. And I'm ready to move hats. But it's a really cool spell out Rams hat. Next up, this is the weird thing about hats. So this is just a regular Volcom hat. This one went for $15. The Ramtastic one was a 20-plus-year-old vintage hat. Went out for $10, and then you can sell a Volcom hat. That just a regular basic Volcom hat for $15. So you just never know sometimes when people are looking for the exact hat that you have and willing to pay up a little bit more for it. Next up, we had another great combined order again today. Hopefully this is a trend till Christmas. We'll keep selling combined hats. A lot of these are really clean. This was a Prana hat. It says clever, like a fox on it, which is a really cool hat. There was a Dutch Mafia kind of trucker hat. We had a nice flex fit Hurley hat that was almost like new. And then we had an Adidas lightweight strapback hat. And then this Puma hat went out all to the same buyer. Really great. How much was it?
About $55, $60.
Went out for $60, probably with shipping. Really appreciate the combined orders, and it's good to see them picking up. Next up, I have a love-hate relationship with these pinwheel hats. A lot of them don't sell. This one was cool because it said Walt Disney World on it. And the buyer messaged me and said taking her granddaughter to Walt Disney World in the next couple of weeks. So that'll be really cool. Glad to get her this hat to wear it in the gates. And it went out for $20. Next up was a gray Under Armour plaid. Went out for $12. It was just a regular strap back, lightweight, kind of running golf style hat. Under Armour hats are hit and miss as well. As long as they're clean, they're usually closer to the $12 to $15 range. When somebody's really looking for the style they want, like this gray plaid one. Next up was Brooklyn Nets. This one only went out for $10. If I had it my way, I wouldn't have any NBA hats in my store. I would never pay over $1 or $2 for an NBA hat. Not all, but like 90% of them, especially Mitchell and Ness, they just typically do not go for more than $10. They are never in that big of a demand. I don't know exactly why. If you have any theories on it, let me know why NBA buyers don't really want to pay more than $10 for a hat. But this one was really cool. It had a suede bill, a leather strap back, big nice patch on it, cool colorway. Still just $10 and took forever to get that. And again, an NBA hat, Chicago Bulls, Mitchell and Ness, took forever, $6. This one had kind of the micro corduroy bill on it, leather strap back. It was super clean too. Chicago Bulls, Mitchell and Ness, $6 whole. And you get $8.35 for a vintage rope trucker hat with an obscure company on it. It's just crazy sometimes. This one was on the Yupung vintage tag. I had a question, and I'm going to have to do better to see how I can explain whether a hat is vintage or not. I'm going to have to break down probably by brands and by styles. And it's going to be kind of difficult to explain, besides without just looking at the tags. And this is a vintage tag, and this is a vintage Yupung hat, and it says made in Korea, and that's how you know it's vintage. Those things. Most of the times vintage hats will have the actual paper tag in them. Newer hats, the tags are mostly sewn in all the way around, and then they will have usually they'll have the Yupung or Youngin snap on them. And then just the style. This rope style is usually an older hat. They are making retro remakes of this style in some hats, but I'll keep trying to explain when I come across the vintage hat what makes that vintage. And a Seattle Seahawks. This is a franchise fitted size large. Like I said, these usually go for 15 to 20. This one went for $14.44. People are always looking for the style and the right size combination, which you might have the only one. So make sure and price these up around $20 and they'll sell. Next was a vintage 49ers hat, and another kind of explanation of vintage. You can see it's a paper tag again, and you can just tell that this tag is old. It's not sewn in. This one is actually on the Sports Specialties tag. So this was made by Sports Specialties, and yeah, it had a Youngin snap. So paper tag, Sports Specialties, Youngin snap, 3 good indicators that it is older and it is vintage, probably around the 90s. Those are some of the key factors that we're really looking for to date hats. Next one was this cool colorway Nike hat I had in my store forever. One, because I priced it up too much. This one went out for $25. It probably was always a $25 hat. some reason I thought it was super cool and better than everyone else's because it did have the Nike pinwheel on it, and it was really cool colors. But I probably just stuck with my price too long on this one. Somebody finally offered me 25. I think I had a price around 40 or 50, and I took it because I'd had it so long. Next up was a vintage, and then we didn't know this one's vintage because they don't make this style of painter hat really anymore. It didn't have any tags in it. The style just kind of tells you that it's vintage, and you can just tell how it's made. This is more of like a paper material in here as the sweatband, which means that it's older, probably 80s. And anytime you run across soft drinks, fountain drink, Mountain Dew, Dr. Pepper, Pepsi, and they're in really great shape, especially Mountain Dew does awesome. This one went out for $23 for this lightweight, flimsy, almost paper hat, but it's super cool. You can tell it's the old Mountain Dew logo that's on there. Somebody really wanted this one. Next up was this Seattle Mariners. I took $18 for it. I think I had a price around 25. Buyer offered me like $10, and I'm like, no. I know there's not another hat that's red like this, Seattle Mariners, with this logo. If that's what you really want, I'm gonna have to give you an $18 offer. If you want it, then you can take it. But really, these hats are like $20 hats because finding this color is not easy with this logo. So just make sure you price them up if they're not the regular New Era hats. Next up was a North Face hat. This one went out for $10. North Face, like Patagonia, in the basic just trucker mesh snapback style hats like this, really between $10 to $15 is the most that you're gonna get for them. They are great brands, but they're just not really awesome hat brands. Next up was this A&W root beer. I think it went on for around $12. It was a flex fit, and it was just kind of rough. It had some staining on it, and the inside was written all over. So I took a little bit lower offer on this one, $12. Next up was just a vintage trucker hat that said Moran on it. This was from our eBay hat buy. If you haven't seen that video, check it out, where we just bought a lot of hats off of eBay for like $2 or $3 a piece. What our average cost was. This one went out for $15 plus the shipping. So pretty happy with that on this style of trucker hat. Usually 10 to 15 is the most you get, but sometimes somebody's really looking for the Moran Equipment logo on there and you get lucky. Next up was this vintage Salem corduroy snapback hat. Again, paper tag on the inside. And they just really don't make much cigarette advertising anymore. So this was a really cool, and you can see it was really nicely embroidered on the front right here. All these things kind of lead you to know that it's a vintage hat. This is by Gold Medal. It was just kind of generic hat brand back in the day, but it was really nice, and cigarette brands can do pretty good. Camel hats, Salem, cool hats. But most of the time they're in the 20 to 30 range. Next up was a Nike, just like a Featherlight hat. It was a lightweight green, good color, different than the black or the normal white. So it went out for $15. When the black or the white ones, you probably get $10 for. And this one was pretty cool. Next up was a great brand. You should probably know if you do much reselling at all. This is Arc'teryx. This is Arc'teryx. Went out for $30. This style usually goes between 30 and 40. Most Arc'teryx hats are in the 30 to 50 price range. This was the really lightweight running style hat, women's. It was clean too. Next up was a vintage Forest Service hats, and I've talked about this a little bit. I don't mind listing them if they're obviously vintage. Here you go, paper tag again inside of it, kind of letting you know that it's an older hat. Snapback, Forest Service, Department of Agriculture, vintage hat. Went out for $25 on Poshmark. All right, Mary, let's do one more question for today.
Okay, the next question comes from JD6870. It says, who do you follow on YouTube as far as reselling?
JD, I appreciate the question, and I appreciate you commenting on every single video. It really helps out, guys. The comments, the likes, that all really helps on the videos. Thank you so much, JD. And as far as other YouTubers, the only other person that I really watch anymore is Lonnie at Shed Flips. I really just like him because he's authentic, he's real. He hasn't strayed away from what he does. He sells on eBay. He sells a little bit of everything. He sells some hats. He sells some nutcrackers. He sells about everything. He kind of has the things he sticks to, but I really like watching him. He's just real, authentic, and it's just him and his wife, and they kind of have a team going, and I just like his content the best. I know there's other great ones out there, and I don't watch much of it, so if somebody's out there doing something that I'm not, it's probably because I haven't watched it. So I'm just trying to do my own little thing here, and I always take any feedback from you guys to try to make the channel better. But that's really the only one that I watch, but I really do enjoy him.